Kia ora e te whana i hukaraitika, Andrew Doubleday-Aho. Today we're looking at the Gospel for Sunday, the 22nd of February 2026. It's Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through to 11. Very well-known passage. It's about the temptations of Christ in the wilderness. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came and said to him, "If you're the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread." But he answered, "It is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God." Then the devil took him to the holy city and placed him on the pinnacle of the temple, saying to him, "If you're the Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he will command the angels concerning you, and on their hands they will bear you up, so that you will not dash your foot against a stone." Jesus said to him, "Again it is written, do not put the Lord your God to the test." Again the devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor, and he said to them, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Jesus said to him, "Away with you, Satan, for it is written, worship the Lord your God and serve only him." Then the devil left him, and suddenly angels came and waited on him. 40 days, 40 nights, alone, without food, alone with only his thoughts. How do we know about these temptations? There was only one witness, and that was Jesus. And I would guess that over the period of the years that his disciples were with him, they talked about it. And maybe these three things were the things that Jesus kept coming back to as of importance. The first one, turn these stones into bread. Now, I want to suggest that this is not a temptation if it's impossible. It must be able to be acted upon. If you knew that you couldn't turn stones into bread, there's something really that doesn't work about it as a temptation, does it? It's interesting that in the infancy Gospel of Thomas, which is a 2nd century apocryphal publication, let's put it that way, the story is told of 5-year-old Jesus making clay birds, a dozen of them. There's a complaint laid against him for doing this. His father comes to see what he's done. He sees the clay birds. He tells them off because one of the scribes has complained. And Jesus claps his hands. The birds all come alive and fly away. Make of this what you will. But not impossible that he might see the possibility of any way of turning the stones into bread. Anyway, it was something that tugged at him. So what is the nature of the temptation here? I want to suggest that there's a temptation to cheat. It's such a small thing. But he's committed himself to this 40 days and 40 nights without food. Come on, just a little nibble. It won't do you any harm. Come on. No one will know. There's just you and me here. No one will know. Yes, says Jesus, but I will know. And that's the one that matters. You see, integrity is found in the small things. And Jesus' parables teach us this, that if we can't be trusted with the small things, how can we be trusted with the great things? We so often think it's the other way around, that someone who can be trusted with the big things surely can be trusted with the little things. But Jesus says that the seedbed of integrity is found in the small things. It's the small things that matter. And the problem with is that cheating in the small things gnaws away at the core of who we are. I told the story of being a 14-year-old who was paid by my father to look after some vending machines in the city when we lived in Dunedin. Well, this would often be in the middle of winter, and I'd come out at 4:45. It was a cold night. I was in my uniform of shorts, and there was still a long trip home. And I would take some money out of the bag from the vending machines and buy maybe a sausage and a few chips. And this gnawed at me. 30 plus years later, I wrote to my father. I worked out roughly how much I might have taken. I compounded it with interest over those intervening years and wrote to Dad and sent him a cheque. He never said anything about it, but he did cash the cheque. But it's the little things that just gnaw away at us at the very core of who we are. The little things matter. The second temptation, jump. Come on, jump. You can imagine it, standing on this high place. I want to suggest there's a couple of possibilities. Because I think the temptation, as I said before, has to be real. And it could be that Jesus really did get to a very low point. If he wasn't who he thought he was, maybe it's better just to get it over with, because he couldn't keep living like this. There was a movie produced in 1969 called Son of Man, written by Dennis Potter, and I've seen it. I found it quite offensive at the time, but I realized it was making a very powerful point. And there's a scene of Jesus in the desert, this really ragged, distressed, demented individual, and he's in a state of agony. Is it me? Is it me? Is it me? Really uncertain about the very nature of who he is and the call of God on his life. And just how difficult that might have been. And underneath it, the real question is that does God really love me? Has God really called me? And the problem with the temptation is that we can't put God in a corner, because if Jesus does jump, what's God going to do? He's either going to catch him, because he can't afford to let happen what the laws of physics will determine, or he's going to let him splat. No. We see the other picture. We see the story of Gideon's fleece back in the book of the Judges, where Gideon puts out a fleece for a bit of guidance, whether it's wet or dry in the morning, those kind of questions. And it's not putting God in a corner. God still gets to choose. The consequences of just ignoring it are not fatal. And here we are as Christians, and we're given a tool of discernment. And this comes out a wee bit in the next one. In Colossians 3:15, we read, "Let the peace of Christ rule in your hearts." I like the way the old King James put it, was, "Let it be the umpire." There's a sense of this peace that passes understanding, the peace that only Christ can give, that when we're seeking to discern God's purpose and God's will, let's see if that's what rests with us. Or if we've made a decision and we don't get that, there might be a little bit more work that we need to do. But in this time in the desert, peace is the thing that Jesus is missing. And this leads us, I want to suggest, perhaps into the third temptation. The devil took him to a very high mountain and showed him all the kingdoms of the world and their splendor. And he said to him, "All these I will give you if you will fall down and worship me." Now, at one level, this sounds ridiculous. This is the Son of God he's addressing. Yet, as I said, these testings, these temptations wouldn't be tests, they wouldn't be temptations if they weren't real. And it's true of all these temptations, there has to be somewhere in Jesus where they get a hook, where they get traction. Their tug has to be experienced in some way. The possibility of Jesus failing the test has to be real, or it's not a temptation. It's really no test at all. We're assured in the book of the letter to the Hebrews that he was tempted in all points like we are, yet without sin. Were you ever tempted without feeling the tug to do something you knew you shouldn't? Or to not do something that you knew you should? Of course not. The pull is always there. I want to suggest this had to be real for Jesus also. Here he is offered unlimited temporal power. All he has to do is bow down before the one who claims the right to bestow it. Whether or not he possesses that power or the right to do it is not in question. For Jesus, the temptation includes the possibility that this tempter does have the right, does possess the power. Now how, we might ask, could that have happened? I can only speculate and make a suggestion. Perhaps for much of this 40 days and nights, Jesus has been assailed by many things, but two recurring thoughts. The first is, I'm hungry. And the rumbling of my tongue, the gnawing of my gut demands attention. And the second is, maybe I've got this all wrong. Maybe I am delusional. Maybe God hasn't really called me. I'm not special. Just like I alluded to a few moments ago, as we see in the Dennis Potter film, The Son of Man. This is tapping, in a funny way, very much into the first two testings, the first two temptations. What if the pressure has been constant and unrelenting, yet every now and then, for a brief period, it all stops, just for a little while? Oh, the relief. No worry about being hungry. No doubting about the call of God. A period of apparent peace. It can be called that. At least it's a freedom from inner conflict. And the offer is made. I can make this permanent. I have the power. I can give you peace and so much more. Jesus has offered the easy path. It's free from suffering. And there's more. Just think of all the good you could do. All you need to do is bow before me. It's not hard. You'll be amazing. And so we see two things at play here. There's the will to power. Imagine what you could do if you had the levers to make a difference. It's an attractive offer, isn't it? And in this offer, suffering is optional. You choose. I can make it stop, the tempter says. It's not me who's tormenting you, though it really is. But I can stop it and give you peace. Of a sorts, anyway. So we see these three basic temptations. The first is to watch the little things. The little things actually matter. As I said, they're the seedbed of integrity. And without integrity, we end up self-sabotaging. We defeat ourselves. We end up going nowhere. The second thing is that we are loved by God. The story that says that we aren't is lying to us. And this goes right back to the Eden story and the 3rd chapter of Genesis, where the goodness of God is called into question. That's the nature of the temptation to Adam in the garden. Has God really said? The tempter asks. And then implies that God is holding out on him, that God is holding out on you and me, that God really does not have our best interests at heart. But God's intent for us is always of the highest and the best kind. And the third temptation, the will to power, is a trap that we need to be careful of, no matter how it's presented. Ego, the desire, the yearning for recognition, the desire to be somebody, so readily gets in the way. And in the end, here's the thing, in the end, the ends come to justify the means. So, perhaps if we commit ourselves to a mantra that the ends never justifies the means, which I'm convinced of, that integrity is found in the small things, and that suffering may be unavoidable and maybe needs to be embraced, then we just might be okay. Amen. God bless you.